I'm just gonna come out of the gate and say it. I'm a little disappointed with Halo 2. Now, by no means is this a bad game, and I'm not even saying I didn't like it. I was just hoping for so much more. After playing and really enjoying the first game, I had super high expectations for this one, most likely as a result of a lot of people, at least that I know, who like to see this game as the second coming of Christ, and I kinda went into it with that mindset. In hindsight, that might have been a mistake. With me playing this almost immediately after the first one, I hate to say it, but a lot of the problems that were present in the first one are still here, and the second one even manages to introduce a few more. Like I said, this is far from a bad game, and I still really liked it a lot, problems and all. However, when I play a sequel, I usually go in expecting problems to be fixed. Unfortunately, that's not really what I got here. So I'm going to be a little harsher here than I was with the first game, even for similar issues. Now, I should probably state, I have no nostalgia for this game or even this series. In fact, this is the first time I'm even playing Halo 2 in my life. Blasphemy, I know, but it's true. So with all of that in mind, I present to you my review for Halo 2 and why I think this game is still good, but far from any kind of masterpiece. The first improvement that I want to talk about is the presentation. It is just so much better here, and of course I am playing the Anniversary Edition in the Master Chief Collection, with the biggest improvements coming from the cutscenes and the environments. All of the cutscenes have been completely redone, and they are gorgeous, even though it can be a little jarring when going from in-game graphics to these beautiful pre-rendered back to in-game. But it's not just the visuals that have been redone, it's the cinematography as well, giving these cutscenes a real cinematic quality to them, and even making it feel like you're almost watching a movie instead of playing a game. They are just superb. The environments are a big improvement as well, with the first game having some very pretty and very stunning places that you get to go and visit to. This game just blows that game completely out of the water. There are just so many more unique places that you go to, and each one is more astonishing than the last. The music, oh my god, is so much better here, which if you have not played the first game, I don't think you can physically comprehend how big of a statement that is. It is without a doubt one of the best soundtracks ever. There are just so many of these awesome parts that have these really good metal songs to go along with it, such as this one part where you have to fly a Banshee alongside this other ship with this amazing song that more than succeeds in its one job. That is to hype me up and to make me feel like I'm an unstoppable force and that I can kill anyone that makes the very significant mistake of being my enemy. Or what about this one time towards the end of the game where you walk into this room and the Covenant of Brutes are just going at it, and the game even suggests through Cortana that you should just wait and let them fight it out themselves. Then this really badass song starts and I just can't help myself. I have to get involved. And in hindsight, I probably should have listened. I might have gotten my ass handed to me more than once here. But me getting my ass kicked to a song I would actually listen to in real life made this one of the most memorable things that I've played in a very, very long time. And when I'm thinking about this game years from now, this will probably be one of the things I will remember. And these awesome moments are just one of the things that are a very big improvement upon the first game. Where that game did a very good job at making you feel like a badass, this game succeeds at making you feel like a super badass, making this game even more of a power fantasy than the first. The absolute best example of that is when you have to take down this big walker thing, and instead of just shooting it down from a distance like the cowards would in the Gears and Call of Duty franchises, this game makes you take a much more hands-on approach and jump onto the motherfucker and proceed to kill everything that has the audacity to have a pulse, all while this exciting song in the background plays.
Can't go any further this way. You have it trapped.
And you shut the thing down while you're still on it, and Master Chief just casually walks away like, yeah, I just destroyed this big walker thing single-handedly, what are you gonna do about it? Sure, the walking away part is just in a cutscene, but that doesn't stop me from feeling like some unstoppable super soldier badass. God, I love these parts of the game. That power fantasy was one of the best parts of the first game, and this game just turns it up to 11 here, and it's amazing. Unfortunately, this kind of brings me to my first few issues with this game, which is the pacing, the level design, and the flood. The pacing was a problem I had in the first game where I felt like objectives would just go on for far too long, and for me, it felt like it was a way to artificially inflate that game's length. For the most part, I don't feel the same here. Mission objectives seem to be a lot more reasonably paced, so I didn't feel like there were any missions like the library, which was like this hour-long mission of just following this one guy to the end of this very long corridor. There are even more vehicle sections in this game, and don't worry, they have been vastly improved from the first one. And there's even a whole new playable character. All of this does a good job at contributing to the game feeling faster, and that it's not trying so hard to pad itself out to be a certain length, which is all very good. However, there is kind kind of a whole new problem with the pacing that has risen in this game, where there were a few times in which I would get just trapped into this room, having to kill very, very small waves of enemies until the game just arbitrarily decides that I've done enough and lets me progress. On the surface, that wouldn't be that big of a deal, but these sections go on for way too long, which just brings the pacing of the game to like a grinding halt. And when I say they are super small waves, that is not an exaggeration. There were points in which I would be walking around the place just trying to find a single enemy to fight. I don't know if I was just missing something obvious, but these parts made my enjoyment go from like a 10 to like a -3. Thankfully, they didn't happen that often. In fact, I think I only counted twice. There might have been more, but I just repressed them. However, this was still a big enough problem that I can't just ignore it, and it did affect my overall enjoyment of the whole game. These sections just kind of felt like the antithesis of the over-the-top power fantasy parts to the game. One thing that I'm really disappointed to still see here is the lack of objective markers. I will never understand why games don't put in objective markers or at least a map. It is in no way fun nor challenging to not know where to go. It was a big problem for me in the first game, and it is somehow even worse here, which is actually kind of impressive in its own right. There were just so many more times in which I would just have to spend a couple of minutes just trying to find out where to go, and that may not sound like that big of a deal until it happens on average 3 times per level. Now, I understand that I might be a special case here because I am the one who gets lost, and I don't need every game to cater specifically to me, but I don't understand how having a map decreases anyone's enjoyment from any game. It only helps morons like me that find a way to get lost at least once in every game that I play. The only thing I can think of for why having an objective marker is bad is that it can decentivize exploration in the game by no longer forcing the player to have to explore to find out where to go. And I can understand that some games are really exploration based, but this game is about shooting things in the face in the most badass way possible. If somebody still doesn't want the objective markers in, that's fine. They should be able to turn the thing off. And there, everyone is happy. The brainlets such as myself are happy because I'm no longer stumbling around the place just trying to find out where to go, and the masochists who actually enjoy getting lost are happy because they can just turn off the objective markers and go right back to getting lost. This was like one of the 2 things I was hoping to get improved from the first game, and instead it is somehow even worse here. I can only hope that Halo 3 finally fixes this problem once and for all. The next big problem in this game that actually kind of hurts the power fantasy is actually something that the first game got really right: the Flood. The Flood was one of my personal favorite things in the first game. It just felt so good to plow through hundreds of these guys, especially with the shotgun. I'm not quite sure what even changed in this game, but now not only is the Flood no longer fun to fight, I actively hated them here. My guess for why I don't like them much anymore comes from 3 things. Thing number 1, I think the damage model seems to be a bit different here as well. I feel like they just need so many more shots to put down than they did in the first game, and I think they can even do more damage to you as well, making them feel a lot more like the Covenant, just a lot more aggressive, and in turn, a lot more annoying. Thankfully, they still do go down with 1 hit with the shotgun, but that brings us right into problem number 2 with the Flood. The shotgun is so much worse here. This is kind of a downgrade for the whole game, but it disproportionately affects the Flood. With all the new kinds of guns in this game, the shotgun being bad doesn't affect me that much when I'm fighting the Covenant or the Brutes. I'll just find a new gun. However, with the Flood only being fun to fight with the shotgun, and the shotgun being a lot worse in this game, it drags the Flood down like a cinder block tied to a leg. In this game, the shotgun just seems to do less damage, making it feel a lot less overpowered, turning it into a pea shooter when compared to the shotgun in the first game, where it was more like a death stick where all you had to do was point the thing at an enemy, push a button, and watch as the life of your victim just leaves its body. In this game, it behaves a lot more like a normal shotgun in some normal video game, dramatically decreasing my enjoyment when using the gun. That is only compounded by how the thing reloads in this game. It just takes so much longer here. In the first game, Master Chief would reload the thing so quickly, you know, kind of like how a genetically engineered super soldier would, but in this game, he reloads it about as fast as I would, maybe even slower. These 2 things may not sound like that big of a deal, and to be completely honest, they aren't. When I'm fighting the Covenant or the Brutes, I'll just use a different weapon. I'm not that attached to my shotgun in games. But, at least for me, the Flood is only fun to fight with the shotgun. But with the shotgun being so much worse here, it makes the Flood just feel so much more like a chore in this game. And then finally, thing number 3 for why I think the Flood is worse in this game. They aren't as much of a swarm as they were in 1. Where in that game, there were times in which you'd be attacked by like 50 of those small guys, and when you start shooting, they would all just kind of turn into this cloud of green, gloopy blood. But that's just not the case in this game. There just isn't as much of those small ones attacking you at once, and maybe it's just me, but I also found them a lot harder to kill here as well, making them just so much less satisfying to kill, and that's just a shame. I know a lot of this may seem to be insanely nitpicky to say the least, but I really loved the Flood in the first game, and killing them with the shotgun was like the best part of that game for me. And that is just so much worse in this game, even to the point that the Flood may actually be my least favorite part of this game, and you have to fight them a lot here. Maybe I'm just crazy, and the Flood isn't at all different from the first game, but all I know is I loved them in Combat Evolved, and I really hated them in 2. I mentioned earlier that you get to play as a different character in this game, and you do. Basically, there are two stories going on throughout this game, the one with the UNSC and Master Chief, and the other one with the Covenant and the Arbiter. The story is probably the thing that this game gets the most right. Like I said in my last review, I really liked the story of Combat Evolved, but just like the presentation, this game's story blows the first one completely out of the water. You get to learn more about the Covenant and what their motivations are, and you even get a glimpse on how their society works. But this game just took what I really liked about the story in the first game, about how you're just trying to destroy Halo, and goes so much more in depth with it. This is one of those stories that really had me invested throughout, and it had me wanting to see it to the end. That's only helped by how good the cutscenes looked in this game, but this story is one of the biggest, not if the biggest reason for why I think this game is quite a bit better than the first, even with all of the other problems. I was just really invested in both Master Chief and the Arbiter storyline, and how they interacted with each other was extremely well done, and having them team up at the end to try to stop the real threat in the game was just awesome. The game even brings back these optional terminals that would elaborate on the lore, which just like the first game is very much appreciated. I don't really know what more I can say about this game's story. It's just good, and it's the reason why I enjoyed my time so much throughout this game, even with all of the other problems making that kind of difficult at times. And the ending for this game was amazing, doing an excellent job at setting up for 3 and getting me hyped to go and finish the fight. My only problem with the other playable character isn't with his role in the story. I feel like that was really well handled. It's with his gameplay. He plays pretty much the exact same as Master Chief, but has a very handy cloaking ability that does do a fine job at changing how you're going to play as him, so that's good. Well, my problem with the Arbiter isn't how he fights, it's who he fights. This guy is the one that fights the Flood in this game. That's right, Master Chief doesn't really have to deal with the Flood in this game. However, they show up in, I think, every single Arbiter's mission, so that means I can't stand the Arbiter's missions in this game, and every time I am forced to play as him, I just want nothing more than to go back and play as Master Chief. To put this into perspective, this game has 15 missions, 14 of which are playable, and 6 of them are with the Arbiter. That is 43% of the game that I just didn't like that much. That is why I said in the intro I'm a little disappointed with this game. A lot of this game I was playing as a character that wasn't as cool as Master Chief, fighting enemies that I didn't like very much. Now, to be honest, even though I didn't like the Arbiter's missions that much, I would be lying if I said I didn't still have fun in them, and that is because of one simple thing. The core gameplay, just like the first game, is outstanding and so much fun to play. This game retains its old school first-person shooter qualities to where you're pretty much just running around shooting things in the face, and it never gets old. Just this time around, you have more weapons, enemies, vehicles, and of course, the whole new playable character to play around with. All of this does a great job of keeping the game fresh and never feeling repetitive, which is something the first game I think needed a little bit more of. First, let's talk about the weapons. In the first game, there wasn't a lot of them, but every one of them seemed to be useful in their own special way. In Halo 2, that has changed. There are a lot of new weapons in this game, and instead of them all being kind of useful like in 1, there are some duds that I never wanted to use, such as the Brute Plasma Rifle, which is like the normal plasma rifle, only it's red. Does a little bit more damage and overheats a lot faster. I hate the thing. Just give me the lower damage regular plasma rifle any day. I don't even know why they felt like they needed to add in a new plasma rifle. The pistol seemed to be a lot less useful in this game as well, which is kind of a shame because I loved sniping people from like a mile away with them. And do I even need to bring up the shotgun again? On the other hand, the new plasma carbine is probably my new favorite weapon in the game because it's quite powerful and looks quite cool. And there's even a lot more guns that shoot up big boomy balls that just destroy everything. And how can one forget the awesome plasma sword, which is like the most terrifying thing ever if you're on the receiving end, but my god is it fun if you have it. My point is, in Halo 1 there were a lot fewer weapons in the game, but all of them kind of felt overpowered in their own special way, resulting in them all kind of being balanced. I'm not trying to say that Halo 2 is worse because of this, because it's not. It's more of a personal preference thing. I personally prefer the way that Halo 1 did it as opposed to this game, but if you like a lot more weapon diversity, you're probably going to prefer Halo 2. The next big change in this game is the enemies. Most, not if all of the enemies in the first game make a return here, and they all kind of feel the same with the exception of the Flood, with the Grunts still being probably the best enemy in the game with just how adorable they are. They are even quite a bit funnier in this game as well with some of the things that they say. Side note, this game seems to have a lot more personality and charm in it. It really helps with making the game's world just feel so much more alive and as a result a lot more enjoyable to be a part of. It's one of those small things that really make me like this game just so much more. Okay, back to the enemies. And just like the first game, the Grunts really help the power fantasy by increasing your kill numbers by hundreds. Some of the new additions include a new sniper grunt and those flying bug things that can just go fuck right off. I hate flying enemies in games, even though I still think they're a very good addition and it changes how you have to approach the battles for the better. But the big new enemy in this game is the Brutes. I hate the brutes so much, and as a result, I'm now a big proponent of brute genocide. But my god, are they an excellent addition to this game. They are terrifying, especially when they decide to charge at you. They have a lot of health, are very aggressive, and do a lot of damage. Now that I'm thinking about it, they actually kind of sound like the Flood, but fun instead of annoying. They are difficult and definitely in a good way. I think they add a lot of very welcome challenge to this game. The hunters are still probably my favorite enemies to fight, but the brutes are kind of like a mini hunter, placing them firmly in second place for the best enemy. I do feel the game goes a little overboard sometimes with how many of them they can throw at you in some rooms. There's this one part late game where there's like 5 or 6 of them in this one room. Brutes aren't very much fun to fight in high numbers. In those numbers, they just kind of get a little too much, and I found the best way was to stand up on the second floor taking pot shots at them and hiding behind cover whenever I needed to. That part wasn't very much fun, and it took a little bit longer than I would have wanted it to. But that only happens maybe twice and didn't detract from how much I hated these enemies. Unfortunately, that does kind of bring me into my final and biggest problem with this game. So because I do still like this game and I do think it's still pretty good, I don't really want to end this review on a very negative note. So I'm going to take a quick break from the gameplay improvements and talk about the worst thing in this game that was very much a problem in the first one and was the number one thing that I wanted to get fixed here. This game, just like the first one, has no fucking idea what the hell difficulty balancing is late game. This game likes to equate difficulty to one-hit kills, grenade spams, and very overwhelming odds. Each one of these are fine by themselves, but you cram all 3 into a single enemy encounter, the game very quickly goes from difficult but still fun to I'm going to throw my controller through my TV and kill my neighbor's puppy so goddamn fast that it will make your fucking head spin. How on earth was this not fixed from the first game? The worst part of that game is once you get to late game, you're kind of forced to play the game one way by standing in a doorway trying to shoot upwards of 15 enemies, all while they throw so many grenades your way they can all kill you in one hit. And wow, does this game loves its grenades. Every time you see one being thrown, you have to run away like you're me being chased by some axe murderer. That's right, I'm comparing a 7-foot tall, genetically engineered super soldier badass with power armor and a fucking energy shield to my overweight, nerdy, stupid ass. Do you see something wrong with that? Because I sure as hell do. Nothing kills the power fantasy more than having to stand in a doorway, running away every time you see a grenade coming your way, hoping and praying to Jesus that it's not a sticky grenade, but of course it's always a fucking sticky grenade, and the thing just blows up and insta-kills you because Master Chief is too much of a bitch to take a grenade to the chest. And if I sound mad, it's because I am. This shouldn't have been a problem in the first game, and it's outstanding that it's still a problem in this game. I swear to God, if this is still an issue in Halo 3, I'm going to lose my shit. Okay, just calm down, deep breaths. In all seriousness, this really isn't that big of a problem. It really only becomes an issue very late game, like last 2 hours late. In fact, it actually has improved from Halo 1. For most of the game, I didn't even know grenades could kill you in one hit. Where in the first game, it happened to me all the time. So at least there's that. It still annoyed me to no end, but I do get annoyed very easily, so take that last rant with a grain of salt. Okay, now back to your regularly scheduled positive programming. The next big improvement is the vehicles, thank God. In the first game, there were a whole new level of god-awful, especially that Warthog, and I'm happy to report that they are so much better, with some new ones as well. But the Warthog has had the biggest improvement, going from completely undrivable to drivable but still quite bad. But you hardly even use the thing in the game, so that's good. You will mostly be using the Ghost, the Tank, and the Banshee, with the Ghost being used the most in the game, and is probably still the best one with how much fun it is to drive and shoot things with it. The Tank is one of the new vehicles here, driving very slowly, but is still a blast to shoot things with its big cannon, and the Banshee feeling the exact same. Maybe. I'm not actually quite sure. I only used the thing for like a total of 40 seconds in the first games. I don't even know if they changed anything. But they do a very good job at breaking up the gameplay so it doesn't feel that repetitive, which is good. If I had to nitpick, I think the game might rely on them a bit too much in my opinion, but like I said, that is just a nitpick. And that is Halo 2. What an interesting game and a very interesting sequel. In some ways, it's a vast improvement from the first game with the music, environments, visuals, cutscenes, story, enemies, vehicles, charm, weapons, and even most of the gameplay. But then on the other hand, it manages to do things even worse, such as the Flood and that sense of direction. And it doesn't even fix my biggest problems with the first game, with the one-hit kills and the late game difficulty. In my personal opinion, I don't think this is a very good sequel. For me to consider something a good sequel, you need to fix the problems from its predecessor and improve upon the things that made the first one great. Where this game more than nails the improvements part of the criteria, it more than falters in the fixing the problems part. So with the important questions, am I disappointed with Halo 2? Yes. Do I still think that this is a good game? Yes. And do I recommend this to people that have yet to play it? Absolutely. This game has its problems and it's far from perfect, but as a complete package, it is still a lot of fun and very much worth playing. It's 2 steps forward with 1 step back. This is a very good game, but far from any kind of masterpiece.